lost her father, and she received her aftercare because she's friends with us.
Okay.
And she's like, I've been in the grief space for 30 years. And
What does she do?
so she's a grief therapist.
Okay.
And she does a bunch of books and a lot of help.
She knows her
in the
stuff.
grief space. She knows her stuff. She's like, when experiencing it for myself with my dad passing away, this was the most practical help I've ever received. Was receiving it through Full Circle Aftercare, like actually having someone one-on-one handling those next steps. Even though we didn't get into the grief side of it, we give them grief resources, but we don't talk about grief with them necessarily. She was just blown away about getting that practical help, how much it actually helped her on the grieving side too. So that was amazing. So what she shared with me though is after
Our
aftercare service, the funeral home that she used let her know that they have an aftercare program. So she received a text message, and she just kind of wanted to see what it was like. So she received a text message, and I think the first or second text message comes out, and it immediately hits stages of grief, right? The stages of grief. And she about lost her mind. So this is something that if you're in therapy at all, if you understand grief at all, the stages of grief is overused, and it causes way more problems when it's used than anything else. And so I think funeral homes all the time are kind of pushing this out there. Hey, here's the stages of grief, because they want to send something that's helpful.
And if you're talking about that, it kind of displays some expertise.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, here's something that I can help you with, but it's not helpful at all.
Okay.
So the history, I don't know if you know the history of the stages of grief.
Not at all.
How it came out. So in 1969, like Elizabeth something Ross.
Okay. Someone.
Yeah, very, very good. She wrote a book about death and dying.
Okay.
And she studied mostly people who were diagnosed with a terminal illness and how they wrap their head around dying.
Mm-hmm.
And she put in there, they have these stages of grief, right? So you've heard them all, like denial, anger, acceptance, all those different things.
Bargaining, whatever.
Bargaining, all that stuff.
Yeah.
What that study was specifically on is you've just been told you're dying.
Yeah.
And how you face that. She clarified, even in the book itself, I'm calling these stages, but they're not stages. Because
this isn't something official.
It's not like the way that stages sound like. Sounds like stages like, oh, first I am prepubescent and then I hit adolescence.
You have to go through these things.
But you don't go through them linearly.
Yeah, it's like I'm worried if I never got angry. It's like, oh, I never experienced anger about my dad's death.
Exactly.
Then okay, so that's where this causes problems, is it creates this expectation that people should be moving through stages when everyone's grief journey is different. It's non-linear.
Right.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Like, I think in 1971, she published an article and was like, Kevler-Ross, that's her name. Elizabeth Kevler-Ross.
There we go, we found it.
It was in there. She published an article. It's like, I never should have called these stages.
Okay.
Because what happens is, if I feel, I'm bargaining, and then I feel angry, and then I feel acceptance, and then I feel angry again, right? Well, is something wrong with me?
I'm judging myself, which is like a classic, that's not how you heal.
I'm not healing normally? Why am I angry again?
Yeah.
Like, no, you're going to be angry and bargaining through the entire thing, right? Every stage that's out there, you're going to be feeling those emotions through this whole process. And you have to get through all of those emotions on their own individual basis. Now, some of those do relate when someone loses a loved one. You have some of those same emotions, but they're also different, right?
Yeah.
And losing a loved one to suicide is different than losing a loved one to Alzheimer's and everything in between. There are different ways that grief hit us. And if the funeral home is only sending out, hey, I've seen this on the internet, it seems nice to send something, but it's not actually based in science. Sometimes it can do more harm than good. Because I just have to get through these things and then I'm not going to feel grief anymore. No. You're going to feel grief your entire life. Because you love that person. If you never miss them again, That would be weird.
Yeah.
It's not stages you get through and I accept it and I never feel grief. No. And I'm going to feel multiple things on the same day. I'm going to be happy that my dad doesn't have to deal with Alzheimer's, and I'm going to be angry that he had to deal with those last few years and I lost those years all at the same time. So it's normal for me to feel those things, and giving me something that says this is what's normal and I feel something different, which I'm going to feel something different every time, is more counterproductive than it is productive.
We don't want to create an expectation that grief has to be a certain way and then people end up judging the way that they feel. We
Right.
want them open to whatever is going to come at them, accepting whatever that grief shows itself up as, so they can accept it and experience that, because that's how you move through it, right?
Right.
Instead of fighting it, you have to accept it and just try to listen and learn from it.
Yeah, and the worst thing that could happen, imagine someone who's already grieving now feels guilt because they are not grieving the right way.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe I don't feel any sadness right now. Like, I mean, when my dad passed away from Alzheimer's, my first reaction was like, oh, good. Not because I wanted my dad to die, but because I was like, this has been miserable. He has been so miserable. And the thought of him not suffering with that anymore was great. Did I feel terribly sad like 3 months later? Yeah. But for those first couple months, I was like, oh, this is so great.
Yeah, I think for a lot of families, I mean, I remember my English teacher in high school talking about this same feeling. And I think this is something that tons of people experience who have a family member who has bipolar or who has like mentally been degrading over a number of years, who requires a lot of help. At some point, like, you love your family member, but they become a lot of work, and it's a huge burden on the family. And when their time does come, there is that sense of relief. And that's, we don't want people judging that or those things.
Right.
So on this idea of, I think, zooming out a little bit of, hey, there might be, if you're running a text message program, someone else is writing those text messages, managing all of that for you, right? I don't think I've talked to a funeral home who's DIYing a text message aftercare program.
Right.
What would you say to the funeral home or to the hospice? Because these programs are starting to hit hospices too. What would you say to them about using those text message aftercare programs when we're thinking about building the best aftercare experience for families possible?
Yeah, so this is the hard thing. Just throwing something out there like, hey, here's a grief resource. Hopefully it lands, right? Like, it's too generalized. So I think if you're gonna point someone something, what I'd rather see happen is having a grief care library that talks about a myriad of different emotions and problems and feelings that I might have, that's open to me when that moment of grief hits, and letting me know, hey, here's some resources for you to go and do your own research, or here's something you can go to, or here's some grief groups. So Mayo Clinic did a super in-depth study about grief. They looked at all the different things that people turn to for grief, not doing anything, therapy, DIY, reading on your own. By far, like, the results, or like double versus anything else, was grief groups. If people can go in a grief group and talk about what they're feeling, and everyone else there is feeling the exact same thing, and no one that they're judging is not their friend, they have to put in a brave face for, so much healing on those. So giving people resources that they can then pick and choose, I think, is much better than just this carte blanche.
Here's one article.
Here's
that's
an article,
super general.
Yeah, that you might hit you in a really wrong way.
Okay. Was there do you remember if there's a difference in that study, or if you've seen anything that like specialized or niche down grief groups are better than a general grief group?
I don't remember. I think it did talk about that specifically. I don't remember how much, but yeah, I will say that talking to a few people who've run grief groups, there is a difference, like, between suicide. And so if I'm in a grief group and my loved one committed suicide, and you're there and your loved one died of Alzheimer's, I'm not going to really feel like you're in the same category as me.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's kind of nice that there are so many grief group resources and people that they can talk to that can be specific to the problem they're facing. And so I would suggest getting in with so many or any of the many organizations that do that. And that's what we refer all families to, grief groups, because most of them are free.
Yeah.
And they're super, super helpful.
Okay, was there anything else you wanted to tie that off with, or was that kind of your thoughts on?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is there are a lot of people that are willing to send information for you as a funeral home to families, and whether it be a website or an email or a text message, just be aware of what that does, how that makes your funeral home or your hospice look.
And how that makes the family feel.
And how that makes the family feel. We want to actually help people. We don't want to just throw fluff out there because it's not helpful, and sometimes it hurts more than it helps. So they're representing your brand. You do a lot to build your brand for who you are as a business owner. I know I do a lot to build my brand. And if someone's out there representing you, you have to make sure that they're not selling your information to someone else, that they're not trying to make money off you. You know, that happens too. But also that they're not giving content or information to the family that's not helpful and that it ultimately makes you look bad or like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it sounds like treating aftercare like a checkbox is kind of the risk here where, we say this a lot, don't let aftercare be an afterthought.
Right.
Where if you just delegate this, assume that whatever big company that's sending text messages, they've got it covered. Yeah. We really want to make sure we're reviewing the content of each of those text messages to make sure it does reflect your brand and meets your standards.
The highest standard is going to be a personalized aftercare, right? Something that takes the time to understand where the family's at and give them personalized resources based upon their needs, meeting them where they're at, versus this generalized, hey, let's throw this out there and hope
lowest common denominator.
Covers, yeah, exactly. Covers everyone, because it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, you want to tell me the story of Price Shopper in Texas on cremation with one of our clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of our clients, they realize that adding our service to direct cremation families, there's just not enough meat on the bone to do that, right? And I oftentimes tell them not to do that because I want this to make good financial sense for them. So oftentimes we won't do our full service for the direct cremation families, but we will for anyone who's having services. And one of my clients down in Texas, he was like, absolutely not. This goes for my direct cremation families for sure. And I was like, okay, why? And basically, he and his competitor had been there forever. His competitor was a little bit lower priced than he was. And then they had a discounter come in. Small town, small rural Texas town. So discounter comes in and is like less than half the cost.
Oh, gosh.
And so his competitor drops down. So both of his competitors are below $1,000.
And he's sitting like
close to $2,000.
Yikes.
Right. So he's like, how do I win that business? He's like, I don't want to have a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? Because we do a lot for these families, and we want to make sure that that we are able to provide the dignity that we want to, and that the family needs. And so he decided to include our aftercare with his direct cremation families, specifically for Price Shoppers. So when a Price Shopper would call up, they'd be like, well, how much is your direct cremation? And he would tell them. He'd get the laugh like, are you kidding me? You're double what the guy is down the road? And all he'd have to say is, yeah, but let me ask you, like, are they making sure you're getting your Social Security payment? Are they making sure that all of the benefits come in? Are they doing all that? Because if that doesn't happen, that's going to cost you a lot more than $1,000. So even if you don't want to have services with us, that's fine. This part has to happen with every family, and we have a personalized agent helping you with every step of the way. And he's like, I won every Price Shopper.
That's crazy.
He's like, because they saw so much value in an aftercare. They're like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Getting that one extra payment for Social Security, huge, right? Or getting veterans benefits, or a myriad of other things that family, even if there's no benefits that are coming in, just that next step of dealing with all that is going to be on their shoulders. It's going to be a major stressor. And knowing that that's taken care of as part of their price. And then I don't think he just talked about that. I think he also talked about why his funeral home family owned and how they take care of their loved one and all that. But he's like, I was able to win every price shopper, so of course I'm going to include that with our direct cremation families. It's not the right model for every single one of our clients, but for those who are looking to not have a race to the bottom, who are looking to differentiate from the other direct cremation competitors in a way that they can keep their prices in a way that they're not going to go out of business and they can provide the service that they've always provided, this becomes a value add that almost everyone will understand immediately.
Anyways, okay. You mentioned another story. I think it was in Texas. Somehow all of our stories are in Texas.
Yeah.
About the mayor of a town. Was this hospice or funeral home?
It was a funeral home.
Okay.
Yeah. So the story for this one is I was sitting here working my desk and I get a tap on the shoulder. Hey, we have a family that wants to talk to you. And so they had just asked, I want to talk to your boss. Because we represent the funeral home, the woman on the phone thought she was talking to the owner of the funeral home.
Oh, okay.
So it gets passed to me and she goes, are you the owner? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm over the Aftercare. And she's like, okay, well, I just got done with my Aftercare appointment. This was the most incredible service I've ever received. Why are you not talking about this on your website? And I was like, is it not on our website? And she's like, no, it's not. And I was like, okay, well, tell me what's going on. So she tells me she's the mayor of the town, super influential. This is the one you want to have a really good service with because everyone's going to hear about it, right? Mm-hmm. So her mother passed away and there were 2 funeral homes. And she was trying to figure out which one. And she's kind of one of those people who does all of her research. So she looked on this website. She looked on that website. Same dang website. Yeah. Right? All the content was been written by someone else, right? And she couldn't figure out. She called to Price Shop. It was almost the same price. No difference between the 2 funeral homes. The only reason why she chose our funeral home versus the other funeral home was because her aunt was disabled and it would be a little bit easier for her to get. She lived closer to our client funeral home.
So basically some arbitrary reason.
Some arbitrary reason to use the funeral home.
Yeah.
And so she used it. It was a great service. She said the service went really well. And then she got that aftercare call. And it's like, hey, we're going to help you with all the next steps. And we took care of everything. And she's like, why are you not telling the community you're doing this? Because if I had known that, it wouldn't even have been a question. I never even would have considered the other funeral home had I known by going to you, I was going to be taken care of not only during the funeral, but also afterwards with all the other things I had to deal with. Because I don't have much time. She's super busy. She has her job and a mayor and all the things and family. She's like, knowing someone was going to step in and do it for me, that is such a value add. And so I called the funeral home. I'm like, guys, add this to your website. And I tell this to all our new clients. If you're going to do this for families, I think it's amazing. You should.
If you're going to pay all this money.
Please tell the community this is what you're doing. Please give people another reason to come use your funeral home, right? We should be putting articles in the newspaper. We should be getting media on this. We should be putting on social media. And we should definitely be putting something about Aftercare on our website of how we are taking care of you. We're not just giving you a checklist. We're not giving you homework for you to do. We're having a one-on-one concierge team take care of you. And when people are looking around, that will stand out as something different. And so they did it. They added it to their website, and they've been with us for, over 10 years now. It's been a great relationship.